Out in the vastness of space where stars burn cold and silent, a dark shadow moves with a fury that no one dares to challenge. The Black Ship, a name whispered in fear across countless worlds, is not just a vessel, but a symbol of wrath, rebellion, and the desperate fight for freedom. For years, it has been a nightmare for those trapped under the iron grip of an oppressive regime that rules galaxies with ruthless control. But now, the winds of change are stirring, and the Black Ship is about to ignite a spark that could alter the fate of entire civilizations. Imagine living in a universe where your every move is watched, your thoughts controlled, and your dreams crushed beneath the weight of tyranny. This is the reality for billions, caught in a relentless struggle for survival. Yet, amidst the darkness, a small group of fighters rises, not just warriors of strength, but of hope and unyielding courage. They carry the heavy burden of rebellion, armed with nothing but their will to break free and the burning desire to reclaim their freedom. The story you're about to hear is not just about battles in space or futuristic technology. It's about people, their fears, their hopes, their sacrifices. It's about how ordinary lives can be caught in the storm of galactic warfare, and how even the smallest act of defiance can shake the foundations of an empire. The Black Ship itself is more than metal and firepower. It's a beacon of resistance, a rallying point for those who refuse to bow. But power never yields without a fight. The oppressors won't let go easily. With spies lurking in every shadow and warships hunting like predators, the journey toward freedom is littered with danger. The crew of the Black Ship must navigate treachery, betrayal, and the crushing weight of their own doubts. Their mission is clear, but the path ahead is anything but certain. What makes this story truly gripping isn't just the high-stakes conflict, but the fragile humanity that survives amidst the chaos. Each character, though caught in a galaxy-spanning war, faces battles within themselves, moments of fear, loss, and hope. It's this struggle that drives the narrative forward, making every decision, every sacrifice pulse with real meaning. As the Black Ship prepares to make its boldest move yet, the entire universe holds its breath. Will this symbol of rebellion be crushed beneath overwhelming force, or will it ignite a revolution that changes everything? The balance of power is fragile, and the consequences of the next step could either spell salvation or doom. And just when you think the battle lines are drawn and the fate of galaxies decided, a mysterious message arrives, one that hints at secrets buried deep within the heart of the regime itself. What lies hidden could change everything, but it might also come at a cost no one is ready to pay. So buckle up and get ready. The wrath of the Black Ship is about to unfold, and the fight for freedom has never been more desperate or more personal. The stars themselves seem to tremble as this story begins. But where it will end, that you'll have to discover in the chapters to come. The Black Ship drifted silently through the endless dark, its sleek silhouette cutting through starfields like a blade. Inside, the hum of machinery mixed with quiet conversations and the occasional sharp command. Every corner of this vessel held stories of loss, courage, and unbreakable will. The crew wasn't made up of heroes born from glory or legends of old. They were ordinary beings, shaped by harsh realities and bound together by one purpose: to break the chains of oppression that gripped the galaxies. Before the Black Ship became a symbol of rebellion, its journey began in shadows. It was once a cargo freighter, forgotten and overlooked by the powerful fleets that ruled the stars. But when its homeworld was crushed under the weight of an oppressive regime, its crew was forced to make a choice: stay silent or fight back. That choice changed everything. What started as a desperate escape turned into a relentless campaign to gather allies and challenge the ruthless control that strangled countless planets. Among the crew were those who had lost everything: family torn apart, homes burned to ashes, lives shattered by the cold hand of tyranny. Their pain was raw, but it fueled their determination. They weren't soldiers by training, but by necessity. Each member brought a piece of the past with them, scars that ran deeper than the stars could measure. The weight of their histories made the mission personal, transforming the Black Ship into more than just a warship. It became a home, a fortress, and a spark of hope. But the regime they opposed was no ordinary enemy. Its reach was vast, with fleets that could darken the skies and intelligence networks that penetrated even the tightest circles. The oppressors thrived on fear and control, using technology and propaganda to silence resistance before it could begin. They had built an empire where freedom was a forgotten word, where dreams were carefully managed and rebellion crushed before it could rise. And yet, despite their power, cracks had begun to appear. The mysterious message that arrived just as the Black Ship prepared for its next strike hinted at something no one fully understood. It was encrypted in a language thought lost, a relic from a time when the galaxy wasn't ruled by fear. The message spoke of a hidden weakness in the regime's core, a secret that could unravel years of oppression if uncovered. But it also carried a warning. Some truths come with a price. As the crew gathered around the flickering holoscreen, tension filled the room. The possibility of a hidden secret brought hope, but also suspicion. Could this be a trap? Or was it the key they had been searching for? Every mind raced with questions, each answer more uncertain than the last. Trust was fragile, and the line between ally and enemy blurred in the cold expanse of space. Outside the ship, fleets of the regime were on high alert. They knew the Black Ship's reputation and would stop at nothing to end its defiance. Skirmishes erupted in distant sectors, battles that tested not only weapons, but the spirit of those who fought for freedom. The stakes had never been higher. Every move was a risk, every victory could be a fleeting moment before a devastating loss. Within the crew, doubts gnawed quietly. Was their fight truly possible? Could one ship, one ragtag band of rebels, really topple an empire built on centuries of control? Yet, despite the fear, they pressed on, because in the end, hope was the one thing the regime could never extinguish. And so, as the Black Ship charted a course toward the unknown, the galaxy held its breath. The next chapter in this struggle was about to unfold, but whether it would bring salvation or destruction, no one yet knew. The shadows deepened, and with them, the mystery that could change everything. Tensions aboard the Black Ship were rising, not just because of the looming battle outside, but from the uncertainty swirling within its walls. Every crew member carried their own doubts, fears, and secrets. Some wondered if this mysterious message was a blessing or a curse, while others struggled with the weight of leadership and the responsibility to keep everyone alive. The fragile unity that held them together was tested more by what wasn't said than what was. One of the crew, a former engineer turned reluctant rebel, spent long hours decrypting the strange code embedded in the message. His fingers trembled as he worked, not from fear alone, but from the hope that this key might finally unravel the regime's hidden vulnerabilities. He knew better than most that a single mistake could lead to disaster. Yet, every line of data he uncovered only deepened the mystery. There were references to places no one had seen in decades, and technologies that had been lost to time or buried beneath layers of propaganda. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ship, a skilled pilot prepared the fighters for what could be their most dangerous mission yet. The regime's patrols were relentless, and the smallest error in navigation could mean death for the entire squadron. Her thoughts drifted to the world suffering under occupation. Homes destroyed, families torn apart, hopes crushed by endless oppression. Every sortie wasn't just a fight in space. It was a battle for those left behind, a promise that they hadn't been forgotten. But the conflict wasn't just external. There was growing unrest among some of the newer recruits. They had joined the rebellion fueled by anger and loss, but the harsh realities of war had begun to weigh heavily. Some questioned whether their sacrifices would ever lead to real change. Whispers of betrayal and fears of spies infiltrating their ranks gnawed at the crew's trust. Paranoia, once a distant threat, became a constant shadow. The regime, too, was not without its own struggles. Far away, in a heavily fortified command center, high-ranking officers debated how to crush the rebellion once and for all. They saw the Black Ship as a dangerous spark that could ignite a galaxy-wide revolution. Yet within their own ranks, there were factions with differing views, some advocating for brutal suppression, others urging caution, worried that pushing too hard might fuel even greater resistance. The cracks in the regime's armor were not just on the battlefield, but in the very heart of their power. Amid all this, an unexpected ally made contact, a covert group operating in the shadows, claiming knowledge of the secret hidden within the regime's core. Their offer was tempting, but came with strings attached. Trusting them could provide the edge needed to strike a decisive blow, but it also risked exposing the Black Ship to unknown dangers. The crew faced a dilemma. Should they gamble on this new partnership or rely solely on their own strength and knowledge? As plans were drawn and counterplans whispered in secret meetings, the weight of the coming storm pressed heavier. Every move was watched, every decision carried consequences that could ripple across star systems. The Black Ship's mission was no longer just about survival, it was about shaping the very future of freedom and oppression in the galaxy. And yet, with every step forward, the questions grew louder. Who could truly be trusted? What sacrifices would be demanded? And what price was too high when the fate of countless lives hung in the balance? The silence before the storm was deafening. The next move could change everything, but no one could say for certain if it would bring victory or a devastating fall into darkness. The air inside the Black Ship felt heavier than usual, thick with tension and unspoken fears. Every crew member moved with purpose, but their eyes betrayed the uncertainty they all shared. The mysterious message had been partially decrypted, revealing coordinates to a hidden location deep within regime-controlled space, an ancient outpost rumored to hold the secret weapon that could tip the scales of this war. The question was, would it be salvation or a trap waiting to consume them all? The pilot ran her fingers over the controls of her fighter, heart pounding as she prepared for the dangerous jump through enemy patrol zones. The crew depended on her skill, and she felt the weight of every life on board pressing down. This mission wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about striking a blow against the oppression that had held entire worlds captive for too long. But the regime's forces were growing stronger, their patrols more aggressive, their resolve harder to break. Time was running out. Inside the command center, the leader of the rebellion paced back and forth, struggling to keep the team united. The cracks in their trust were widening. The whispered suspicions of betrayal made every glance and every word charged with double meaning. An informant could be lurking among them, feeding information back to the regime. But revealing that suspicion could tear the crew apart just when they needed to stand strongest. The balance between suspicion and solidarity was razor-thin. Meanwhile, the covert group that had offered their alliance grew restless. Their motives weren't entirely clear, and some in the crew questioned if they were allies or another dangerous gamble. The offer to guide the Black Ship to the outpost came with warnings of unknown dangers, deadly traps, automated defenses, and forces loyal to the regime's darkest secrets. Every step toward the outpost was a step into the unknown, and yet retreat was no longer an option. On the other side of the galaxy, the regime's command center was alive with urgency. The high-ranking officers had finally pieced together the rebels' intentions and moved swiftly to prepare a counterattack. Fleets were mobilized with deadly precision. There was no room for error. They would strike the Black Ship with overwhelming force and crush this rebellion before it could inspire others. But even within their ranks, the tension was palpable. Some questioned if destroying the rebels meant extinguishing a spark that could reignite at any moment, while others saw only a swift, brutal end to a threat. Back aboard the Black Ship, The crew gathered in the dimly lit briefing room. The decrypted information revealed the outpost was a relic from an era before the regime's rise, a place holding technology powerful enough to disrupt the oppressive systems controlling entire star systems. It was a chance for freedom, but one that could cost everything. The choice lay before them: risk it all on a desperate mission with uncertain chances, or continue a war of attrition that was slowly bleeding their hope dry. As the ship prepared for the final jump toward the outpost, alarms suddenly blared through the corridors. Sensors detected multiple enemy ships converging fast, their intent unmistakable. The regime had anticipated their move. A trap was closing in. The crew scrambled to their stations, hearts racing. The pilot gripped the controls tighter, ready to face a fight that could decide the fate of their rebellion. The leader steadied their voice, issuing commands with a calm that belied the storm inside. Every second counted now, every decision a thread that could pull the whole mission apart or hold it together. Outside, the vastness of space turned into a battlefield where freedom clashed with control, hope challenged fear, and the future of galaxies hung in a fragile balance. The black ship was no longer just a symbol. It was the last beacon of resistance. And in the silence before the chaos, one question echoed louder than all. Would this mission break the chains of oppression, or become the final chapter in a story of lost dreams? The answers waited just beyond the stars, hidden in the coming storm. Just as the black ship's defenses roared to life, preparing for the incoming assault, a sudden, unexpected signal cut through the chaos. A distress call, faint and desperate, coming from deep within the outpost's coordinates. The crew froze, caught between the urgency of battle and the mysterious plea for help. The message wasn't part of any known communication. It was old, raw, and encoded in the same forgotten language as the secret message that led them here. The pilot glanced toward the leader, who hesitated for a fraction of a second. An eternity when lives hung in the balance. Responding to the distress call could expose their position even more, inviting the regime's fleet to close in faster. Ignoring it, however, felt impossible. The plea wasn't just a random transmission. It carried the weight of someone trapped, someone who might hold the key to everything they had been fighting for. Inside the ship, whispers grew louder. Was this a trap? Could the regime be luring them into a deadly ambush? Or was this truly a survivor, hidden away in the depths of the outpost, waiting for rescue? The question tore through the crew's fragile trust. Some argued for caution, others for action. The conflict inside the black ship mirrored the larger war outside, the struggle between fear and hope, between survival and sacrifice. Meanwhile, the covert allies pushed harder, insisting they knew what waited at the outpost and warning that time was slipping away. Their leaders' motives remained unclear, and a few crew members started to suspect that these shadowy figures might have their own agenda, one that didn't fully align with the rebellion's. Could they be using the black ship as a pawn in a larger game? The possibility sent ripples of unease through the ship. The regime's fleet was closing in fast, tightening the noose with precision and overwhelming firepower. It became clear the enemy wasn't just after the black ship. They wanted to reclaim whatever secret the outpost held at any cost. Intelligence reports suggested the regime feared a power shift more than open war. This mission wasn't just a fight for freedom, it was a battle for control of a weapon that could reshape entire galaxies. As the black ship adjusted course toward the source of the distress call, sensors suddenly detected a signal spike, a massive energy surge erupting from the outpost itself. The readings were unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Dangerous, unstable, and powerful enough to threaten not just the ship, but entire star systems nearby. The ancient technology buried there wasn't dormant, it was waking up. The pilot's voice cut through the tension. We're entering a zone of extreme risk. Shields won't hold if that energy spikes again. The leader nodded grimly, knowing this mission had just become far more perilous. The stakes were no longer just survival or rebellion. They were now about confronting a force that could destroy everything. Inside the command room, the engineer who had decrypted the original message made a startling discovery. Hidden within the code was a warning. The technology at the outpost was designed not only to break oppression, but also to prevent misuse at all costs. It had a fail-safe, a devastating last resort that could wipe out entire fleets or planets if triggered. Whoever controlled it wielded unimaginable power, but with it came a terrible risk. Suddenly, the distress signal changed. No longer a plea for help, but a challenge. A voice echoed through the ship's comm system. "You seek freedom, but freedom comes with a price. Are you willing to pay it?" The Black ship's crew braced themselves. The enemy was no longer just the regime's fleet. They were facing an ancient force, a secret buried beneath layers of fear and control. The fate of Galaxies now balanced on a knife's edge, caught between hope, danger, and a truth more complex than anyone could have imagined. And as the stars outside seemed to darken with the coming storm, one thing was clear. The wrath of the Black ship was far from over. The hardest battles were still ahead. The Black ship shuddered as the energy surge from the outpost pulsed again, this time stronger, shaking the hull and sending sparks flying from the consoles. The crew scrambled, working feverishly to stabilize the shields, while the enemy fleet closed in, their weapons primed for a final strike. The tension was suffocating. Every second felt like a lifetime as the fate of the rebellion and countless worlds balanced on a knife's edge. Inside the command room, the leader's voice was steady despite the chaos. "Prepare for boarding protocols. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for the future of freedom itself." The crew exchanged determined glances. They had come too far to turn back now. The pilot maneuvered through the outpost's dangerous energy fields with expert precision, dodging bursts of unstable power while enemy fighters swarmed around them like predatory shadows. The Black ship's fighters launched counterattacks, desperate to keep the opposition at bay. Explosions rippled through space, lighting up the darkness with flashes of fire and metal. As they reached the outpost, a hidden entrance revealed itself. An ancient docking bay, long forgotten, but still intact. The crew quickly prepared to deploy a boarding team. The engineer, who had been working on decoding the message, led the group, his fingers steady despite the tension. What awaited them inside could change everything. Stepping through the airlock, the team entered a cavernous chamber filled with strange machinery and glowing consoles. The technology was unlike anything they had seen. Old, yet humming with latent power. At the center stood a massive control core, pulsing with energy that felt almost alive. This was the secret the regime had feared, the weapon that could dismantle oppression across galaxies. But as they approached, the distress call's voice returned, now clearer and more urgent. To control this power, you must choose freedom at the cost of sacrifice or eternal submission under the regime's rule. The voice was artificial, but with a weight that made the air grow cold. The outpost was not just a weapon, it was a test, designed to ensure only those willing to make the ultimate sacrifice could wield it. Suddenly, the outpost's energy surged wildly, forcing the team back. The core began to destabilize, threatening to explode and obliterate everything. The engineer frantically worked to contain the overload, while the leader faced a heartbreaking decision: to activate the weapon and risk the lives of everyone nearby, or retreat and let the regime maintain its grip on freedom. The crew stood united, knowing the moment of truth had arrived. With a deep breath, the leader gave the order to activate. The core responded, bathing the room in blinding light as waves of energy spread through space. The oppressive fleets faltered, their control systems disrupted, communications shattered, and weapons disabled. Across star systems, people rose up, inspired by the sudden chance at freedom. Victory seemed within reach. But then, just as hope surged, the unexpected happened. The outpost's core pulsed one final time, and a new signal flooded the ship's systems. It wasn't a warning this time, but a message from the regime itself. "You have won this battle, but the war has only begun. The true oppressors lie beyond your stars." The black ship's crew stared at the glowing console, stunned. Their fight was far from over. What they thought was the ultimate weapon was just the first key in a much larger, more dangerous game. As the light faded, the stars outside returned to their cold silence, but the rebellion's flame now burned brighter than ever. The wrath of the black ship had struck a powerful blow, but the fate of Galaxies was still unwritten, and new shadows were already gathering. The story was just beginning. The black ship floated in the quiet aftermath of the battle, its hull scarred but unbroken. The energy from the outpost had changed everything. The oppressive fleets were crippled, their grip loosened across many star systems. Across the galaxy, pockets of resistance flared to life. Emboldened by the sudden disruption in the regime's control, freedom, long a distant dream for many, now felt within reach. Inside the ship, the crew moved with a new sense of purpose. The tension that had weighed so heavily on their shoulders began to lift, replaced by cautious hope. The mission had succeeded in breaking the chains of oppression, but the final message from the regime lingered like a shadow, a reminder that their journey was far from over. The leader gathered the crew in the dimly lit briefing room. Faces once marked by doubt and fear now carried determination and quiet strength. "We struck a blow today that will resonate through galaxies," the leader said. "But we must remember, the fight for freedom isn't a single battle or a single weapon. It's the courage to stand against injustice every day, to hold on to hope even when the future is uncertain." The engineer who had decrypted the ancient message stood quietly beside the leader. "The outpost was a test," he explained, "not just of power, but of resolve. It forced us to face what we were willing to sacrifice. That's the real lesson. Freedom demands sacrifice, but it also requires unity and trust." Among the crew, old wounds began to heal. The suspicion and fear that had threatened to tear them apart softened as they shared stories of loss and hope. The pilot, once burdened by the weight of so many lives depending on her, found solace in the knowledge that their fight was making a difference. The covert allies, once shrouded in mystery and doubt, earned cautious respect by standing with the crew through the darkest moments. Yet the final twist, the regime's warning about even greater enemies beyond their stars, left everyone aware that the true battle was only beginning. The universe was vast and full of unknown threats, but the black ship had shown that even the smallest spark could light the way through the darkest night. As the ship charted a new course toward unexplored regions, the crew looked out at the endless stars with renewed resolve. The galaxy was no longer just a place of fear and oppression. It was a canvas for change, shaped by those brave enough to fight for freedom. Every star held a story, every planet a chance for a new beginning. The wrath of the black ship had become more than a rebellion. It was a movement, a symbol of resilience and hope that would inspire countless others. The fight against oppression was far from over, but the crew knew they were no longer alone. In the quiet moments that followed, the leader reflected on the journey. The cost had been high, the road uncertain, but the spirit of freedom had prevailed. They had faced impossible odds, navigated betrayal and danger, and still stood ready to face whatever came next. Because in the vastness of space, amid endless darkness, the light of hope shines brightest when it is shared. And as long as that light burned, the fate of galaxies would never be sealed by fear or control. The story ended not with an answer, but with a promise that the fight for freedom is never truly finished, and that every act of courage, no matter how small, shapes the future of all. The black ship sailed onward, a beacon for all who dreamed of a better tomorrow.